Welcome to the Jay Kim Show. This is your host, Jay Kim. I am an investor, author, and fitness entrepreneur, and for the first time in Asia, I sit down with the world's most brilliant minds in business, investing, and entrepreneurship. You'll learn all the secrets, strategies, and formulas to becoming a successful entrepreneur directly from the masters. If this is your first time listening, thank you for stopping by. This podcast is produced every week with the goal of providing actionable insight to you, the listener, with every single episode. And now, on to the show. In this episode, we speak with Danny Yeung, who is one of Hong Kong's local heroes, a serial entrepreneur who is best known for having exited a group buying company that he started in 2010 called You Buy, I Buy. Danny sold his company to Groupon only 6 months after he launched it. He was not the first player in this market in Hong Kong at the time, but his company was the best executor. After the exit, Danny agreed to stay on for 4 years as the CEO of Groupon East Asia. But once again, he got the entrepreneurial itch and decided to leave to start a company, this time in a completely new industry, biotech. His latest startup is called Prenetics, which falls under the larger umbrella of pharmacogenomics. Pharmacogenomics is essentially the testing and analysis of a person's DNA to understand exactly how his or her body will respond to certain medication. Danny is building a very interesting company. He'll be one of the speakers at the Health Tech event this Friday, January 20th, which is part of the Start Me Up Hong Kong 2017 festival. Let's get on to the show. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today on the Jay Kim Show, where we discuss entrepreneurship in Asia. I'm very excited to have you on the show. And perhaps for our audience who in Hong Kong probably has heard of you, but perhaps outside in the region or maybe listening in from the US or in Europe, maybe you can give us a little introduction on who you are and how you became an entrepreneur.
Thanks, Jay, for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here today. For my background-wise, I started entrepreneurship at the age of 12, I would say, when I started selling baseball cards after school. So that was when I really realized about buying low and selling high. So did that very early. Of course, that was I didn't think of it as an entrepreneurship at that time. But reflecting back, I think that's my first foray. Then I started working when I was at the age of 15 as a telemarketer. At 18, I started working in internet companies. That was really when I really thought technology and how it's really impacting a lot of lives at an early stage. And at the age of 25, I started my first true business selling Hong Kong style desserts in San Francisco.
Okay. So how did you manage that whole thing? How did you even stumble upon that idea? And obviously, how did you generate that connection to bring that over?
Sure. So I think idea is always an inspiration of something that we see, hear, or feel, right? So with that inspiration, I was traveling once a year back to Hong Kong, and I really liked this Hong Kong dessert chain called Hui Lo San, Shi Lo San in Mandarin. And I was like, wow, this is really good stuff. How come it's not available in San Francisco where I used to live? And just by that thought process, hey, somebody should do it. And then I was like, hey, why not me? And then so that's where I had the original idea. Then I cold called Hui Lo San in Hong Kong. I was like, hey, this is Danny from San Francisco. I'm very interested. See if you guys will be interested in franchising your store into Hong Kong, given San Francisco has a large Chinese population. So there would already be high brand awareness, right, right off the bat.
Right.
And certainly, they said, oh, okay, this young kid, that's stupid young kid wants to pay us. And for them, they were a very family-oriented business. They didn't have much to lose.
Right.
And then for us, for myself, it was a very good opportunity to start my first business.
Yeah. Definitely. So Danny, let's take a little bit of a step back, because this is something that I like to discuss on this show is the entrepreneurship mentality and culture within Asian culture. So I think for the most part, and I speak from I'm US, I'm from the States, and my parents were first generation immigrants into the US, and so entrepreneurship to them was not in the realm of possibility for me. It was they were first generation immigrants. They were doing everything they could to provide food on the table. And so their solution for me was to go to school, get a good job, and then their job would be done. So it wasn't encouraged it definitely, it would have been difficult for me to just say, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to go try to start a business instead of going to work on Wall Street or becoming a doctor, right? So how was that whole process in your family? And did you find resistance or did you find support from your family, from your immediate family, for you to become an entrepreneur?
Well, actually, Jay, I actually share a lot of what you went through. Yeah, in terms of even my parents were not entrepreneurs.
Right.
We immigrated to the U.S. in 1984. But growing up wise, I always saw basically, they were always constantly working. And I really wanted to actually not always constantly working, but I wanted to actually do something really impactful. And basically, work smartly, and at one time be able to provide a great future for myself, my parents, and my family via entrepreneurship. So certainly, I think in the beginning they were always not so receptive to entrepreneurship. But I think once I showed them a little bit of traction, a little bit of success, then each reiteration along the path, they come to accept it.
Yeah.
And of course, each new business idea I take in, the risk becomes greater and greater.
Right.
But I think we're given the experience, the track record. I can't see another path besides entrepreneurship for myself right now.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a good point because I think this resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs that perhaps have gone through the same sort of family background and struggle to prove themselves. But in the end, whatever it is, whether it's schooling or maybe it's your first job or your first few entrepreneurial pursuits, at some point you have to prove yourself. Your parents aren't just it doesn't matter if your parents are conservative or liberal, Asian, Western, you still have to somehow prove yourself that you are capable and competent to go off and do your own business. And I think that can come in different forms. Some parents are open, right after school to let their kids try and fail. Other people are more conservative and they say, when you make all your money first in a stable corporate job, then you can try something else entrepreneurial. So I find that fascinating. But luckily, at a young age, you proved yourself. Apparently, and you were able to start the dessert business. Okay, so you've done that. So that was your sort of first real entrepreneurial pursuit. Now let's talk about your next one, which is probably the one that brought you to Hong Kong that most people know you by, right?
One before that, which was the hotel furniture business. And then, so that was also by opportunity as well, right? So, each of the businesses that I've worked on in the past or created was never things that I actually intended to do. It was just like, opportunistic. It's like, hey, I saw an opportunity and I'll try and see if it actually works and just, make sure that I'm very knowledgeable about that. So the hotel furniture business came upon after about 3 years I was doing the dessert in San Francisco. It was okay, but, basically wasn't to the point where it was like an awesome business, and which basically didn't scale to 20, 30 stores, which was my original ambition. It was still very profitable, but it couldn't get to 20, 30 stores. Right. So I had an opportunity to do a hotel furniture business via a friend, which was basically designing hotel furniture, and she needed help basically sourcing for furniture.
So what did you do with the dessert business? Were you able to exit that?
Sold it to my cousin, actually.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's nice. Keep it in the family.
And with the hotel furniture business, I actually had zero background, right? Each of the businesses I had zero background in it. So at that time, how I actually found factories to start sourcing was via Alibaba.
Oh, okay.
At that time, it was actually not like Alibaba today, right?
Right. It's like, the original 1.0 Alibaba.
Right. It was like very few people actually knew what Alibaba was.
That's right.
But I thought, hey, this is a good platform. I was able to find suppliers there, and basically I was bridging the gap and sourcing from China and selling back to hotels in the United States.
Wow. Okay.
Certainly, the first year I would say was immensely tough as a new company. Doing hotel furniture, you're against a lot of the much bigger established hotel furniture companies.
Right.
But do lots of cold calling, lots of begging people to take meetings, and lots of perseverance. I was able to show value by basically how you understand the customer, their needs, and the customer journey, and also certainly have good furniture to produce for your customers.
Right. So what was your value proposition there? Was it both price and sort of aesthetic design that you could customize to what they wanted? Or, because I'm imagined that most hotels would have sourced very stock type furniture, right?
These are customized design furniture. Right? And then so certainly one thing I think that was key I did, and I can, given this is an entrepreneur show, one thing I did do at that time, so I negotiated with the China factory to let me use their name as the company in the US.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So to the end user, it was not seen like a middleman. I was just directly basically employed by the factory in China, but I was basically the head office.
Very smart.
Right, because certainly I think it's key that we eventually worked with MGM City Center, which is like a $5 billion USD project, right? We furnish over 2,000 units of everything when you flip upside the room. So when you're talking about that scale, that type of companies, they don't want to work for a middleman. They afford to go direct, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In their minds, we're always direct.
Wow, that's very smart, savvy of you to negotiate being able to use that brand. Okay, and so you did that, and then once again, you decided that you had a entrepreneurial itch, so you decided that it was time to move back to Hong Kong. So what happened to the furniture business, and what led you to Hong Kong?
Sure. So basically, after the financial crisis, the large hotels, they weren't building as many hotels as they used to, right? A lot of them actually, they couldn't get financing. I was still doing okay, working on smaller hotels, not the 2,000 room hotels. And then I just, one of my close friends just sent me a link telling me about Groupon. And this was basically in 2010, February of 2010.
Yep.
The link would basically say they just raised $950 million USD. And I was looking at their business model. Wow, this is a very simple business model. I love the idea of it, right, that you can actually gain customers to your restaurant. Certainly, that's what I did previously. So I saw the value in that right away.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money at that time. We were talking about in 2010, even though right now it's a lot of money, but there's tons more companies raising that much amount or even billions more, right?
Yep.
In 2010, there was Groupon was the talk of the internet world.
Yes.
So I was thinking, wow, great idea. I love the idea. And then the first thing I did after I read that link, I called up my cousin and said, can we do a Groupon deal in your store? I just want to test it out. I want to see the user experience, see if this really brings new customers in.
Right.
And within 1 week, we were able to set up a deal. The results were 500 new customers bought a voucher in basically 24 hours. And within the next day, the dessert chain got new customers.
So this was in Hong Kong?
In San Francisco.
So you actually beta tested it in San Francisco?
Yeah, I was always living in San Francisco.
Right. Okay.
I was always living in San Francisco. So I beta tested it in San Francisco in 2010, February. By March 1st, I was already on a plane to Hong Kong. So within a span of 1 month, I packed my bags. The furniture business, I actually negotiated with the factory to give me royalties for a certain number of years after I left.
Wow, nice.
So because basically my value was the customers, right?
Right.
So I had that, but I really knew that I needed to be in Hong Kong because I loved the idea, but I couldn't. There's no way for me to compete in the US against Groupon.
Right.
So I had to choose. It's like, hey, where would this business model make sense?
Perfect.
Launch yet that I could go to and basically launch the model.
Right.
So I moved to Hong Kong March 2nd, 2010. By June 28th, 2010, we had our first deals live in Hong Kong and Taiwan.
That's very fast. That's very, very fast speed to market. Execution. And I think you mentioned before, not on this call, but previously, I know you've mentioned that when you arrived, you definitely weren't the only player in this group buying space, right?
There was already a ton, right? When I planned that I wanted to be in Hong Kong, there was probably none. But even within that, 1-2 month gap, there was already, I think we were the fourth company that launched, right? And then within 3 months after we launched, at one point there was 57 competitors doing group buying in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong's not a big place, right?
Right. So what made the difference? How did you accelerate your growth to the point where you got on Groupon's radar for the exit? You know, how would you differentiate yourself from the 57, however many other competitors that were out there?
Well, number one, I think we were the market leader already from first day until when we were actually acquired. I mean, our revenues were growing crazy. And so we're definitely by far number one market leader. And I think I was the only one that out of all the 57 actually cold called Groupon CEO Andrew Mason at the time.
Wow, nice.
Right, so it was just one random night, and I remember in September, it was 1 a.m. in the office. I was like, hey, it'd be interesting if I call Groupon and ask for Andrew Mason, see what he would say. Of course, he didn't pick up the phone, but I left a message saying, this is Danny. I'm a company called You Buy. I'd like to see if you guys are interested in a partnership.
Right.
I didn't see anything of it, but 7 days later, someone emailed me back, said they were from the M&A team. It's like, you left a message for Andrew, how can I help? And then just gave them some stats on what we were doing. They found it very interesting and exciting. And then they flew me out to Chicago a few weeks after that. That's how it got started.
Wow. I've never heard that part of this story. I mean, I think a lot of people have, they know about your exit to Groupon, but they don't actually know how you nailed it.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere, right? So of course, a few close friends know about that story.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with the audience. I think that's fantastic, because I think that the ability to, it's sales. It's basically what you did, like as a startup founder, as an entrepreneur, you have to always be selling, right? And you have to be able to have that thick skin and be pounding the pavement, picking up phone call, cold calling people, be able to just deal with rejection and not let it bother you, just keep going and keep going and keep going. It sounds like you did just that to secure this exit, right?
But correct, and exactly. I always refer to sales as it's a science, right? You can't be selling. You have to provide information, let other people make that decision. Right? And even a lot of times today, when people find me on LinkedIn, or I actually appreciate them finding or researching things about myself, because it shows a real willingness, it shows a proactiveness to how their thought process is.
Yep, right? That's right. Exited Groupon. So it was essentially later that year that you exited.
Yeah. So basically, we launched June 28th, 2010. After 6 months, on a monthly basis, even before the exit, we were already doing $1 million USD monthly revenue.
Wow.
And we only had 11 people at that time.
Right.
So they acquired a majority stake in the company in 2010. And we had 11 people. When I left Groupon, we were already doing about 130 million annual revenue. I was overseeing about 300 people when I left in 2014.
Wow. Okay. They basically took over and they kept you on for X amount of years. Was that the arrangement?
Yes, correct. So it was a 3-year vest.
Okay.
And of course, through the 3 years, they provided the capital. Of course, they pretty much in terms of the business side, let us execute in terms of the business size and just using the resources that they were given to us.
Right. Okay. Wow. So basically, and this was you and your partners as well. Like everyone, the original team had to stay on for the 3 years.
When we started, I was the only operational guy.
Okay.
But certainly me and my partners, we funded the company $950,000 USD originally to get started.
Right. Okay. That's pretty interesting. So 4 years you stayed on, you waited till the vesting was over, and then at some point I guess the entrepreneurial itch came up again, and you decided that you wanted to try something else, right?
Yeah. So certainly, at one point, I think I always knew after the vesting period I would do something again, because it's just, I knew that industry in and out, right?
Right.
There wasn't new stuff that we were going to be learning, and I think at that time too, Groupon stopped being innovative, right? And I think if you think about it, in 2010 they were already valued at $6 billion company.
Right.
Today they're valued at $3 billion.
Right.
At the same time, Airbnb was valued at 3. They went to 30.
Right. Yep.
And even Uber wasn't even around, I think, at 2010. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So you have noticed me. So, and when I left, it was, I think the innovation constantly has to happen.
That's right.
Around any company, even if you're a large company, because then that's the biggest fear or biggest risk is the lack of innovation. That's what really, I think, happened. And so certainly when I left, I started, the natural thing was basically to take a little bit of a break and started investing in early stage companies.
Right.
which I did. But I got a little bit bored of that after a few months, and it's like, hey, because I still felt like I still have a lot of drive, lot of
Yeah.
motivation, a lot of commitment to give. So I really looked into, hey, what are some interesting industries that I haven't done before,
Right.
and which I think could make a significant impact. So I looked into education and healthcare. Because these are two industries which also in Asia, there's not that many entrepreneurs tackling the space.
Yeah. And it's interesting that so education, I know for I've looked into that myself personally, and it's a huge vertical that I'm very interested in myself personally. And then when you say healthcare, usually, so now this is where this is interesting because to me, because it seems like you tackled, like you literally aggressively went after one of the hardest segments in the market to go after. I mean, I don't know if you have any sort of medical background. It seems like you don't.
I do not.
Yeah,
Zero.
exactly. So what made you want to literally dive headfirst into healthcare and say, you know what, I'm gonna go tackle that?
You have to try. You have to give it a shot first, right? And then
Mm,
certainly, I think what my experience, certainly I don't think I would have been able to do that with the previous three businesses experience.
right.
Because if you think about it, each business, regardless of what industry it is, how do you provide value, a really strong value proposition, and how do you solve the supply and demand on both sides?
Mm,
Right, it comes down to the core of it. So certainly, I felt that if we had a very strong value proposition in place, then it's something that both consumers and customers and on the supply and demand side, both sides would win-win, right?
right. Right.
And that's where I saw genetics and genomic testing as something that the awareness level in the U.S. is much higher, but it's current where even today in Asia-wise or Southeast Asia more specifically is still quite low.
Right. So that was my next question. You just led right into it. So let's talk about Prenetics, your current company that you're building, and what exactly is pharmacogenomics?
Yeah. So I would say actually, Prenetics is basically. So currently, Prenetics I co-founded basically in 2014.
Hmm.
Basically, what we did was there was an existing company called Multi-Gene Diagnostics Limited. It was around since 2009. In 2014, the professors and scientists came to me for funding.
Okay.
I found it very, very interesting, very exciting, very passionate team, but they were lacking on the commercial side. So this is where me and my few close friends would put in our own funds into the company,
Mm.
about 2.3 million USD at a time.
Wow. Okay.
And then it's like, we'll fund you guys, but on one condition that I come on board and we rebrand the name, change everything around, and basically I joined on board as the day-to-day CEO. And so at that time, the company had 11 people and it was struggling on a commercial basis. For 2 years today, which is about realistically 24 months ago, we are now the largest genetic testing digital health company in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
We have a team of over 55 people. We own and operate our own 8,000 square feet genetics laboratory in Hong Kong.
Wow.
What we do is we are focused on utilizing mobile technology along with DNA technology and creating digital solution programs for large insurance companies.
Mm.
So what we rely is really on prevention, right? So because how we look at it is that healthcare is transforming, right? I think previously a lot of care was focused on treatment. So once something happens, then you're treated and and everything gets well, right?
Right.
If we look at it, prevention is a much greater need because if you're able to prevent something, nobody really wants to go see a doctor. Nobody really wants to make a claim to your insurer unless
That's
it's got to.
Yes.
So what we do is, so we have multiple tests that we've launched last year. First test we launched last year is called the iGenes test. So this is a DNA test to identify the most optimal drug response in individuals.
Mm.
And so this test, what the problem this solves is adverse drug reactions.
Right.
Because typically, if you go to the doctor today, the doctor will say, "Hey, here's some medication. If it doesn't work, come back in 1, 2, 3 weeks. Tell me how you feel. I'll switch your drug for you."
Mm-hmm.
Due to new technologies and the drop in cost of DNA sequencing, we can perform a DNA test on an individual and tell you which drugs will hurt you, which drugs will help you before you even take it.
That's really that's very powerful, and even when you go down to the very basic level of non-prescription drugs, I even personally I've taken, for example, a very simple example is allergy medicines.
Yeah.
Sometimes I take certain allergy medicines, and it's just really it overwhelms me, and I can't handle it. It just makes me feel really bad. Whereas others, it just works very well.
Correct.
So this is a perfect example where I could use some of your testing to figure out exactly which one I should take, right?
Exactly, and this is really due to the way individuals metabolize. Right, so there's four different metabolizer states, ranging from very fast, intermediate, normal, and poor metabolizers.
Mm,
And so the way individual metabolize, that's the way medications absorb into your body. And so that explains the differences in reactions towards each individual. Granted, the majority of people are normal metabolizers. So we're talking about 60% of the population are normal.
right.
And that's what happens to the other 40%. They're not normal.
Right. So they'll struggle in some way when they take the drug the same way as the way that the 60% would not be
Correct.
affected. Right.
And that's why on all drug labels, you will say, hey, there may be these conditions, right?
Right.
So, but why do we, as an individual, I mean, if we're looking at like technology today, why are we still taking this trial and error approach?
Right. Wow. Okay. Okay. So what is so at what stage are you now? So you have the drug, you have the tests that are available for, I guess, for the medical community at this point.
Yes, and insurance companies.
Insurance companies. Okay. And so this is fully. I mean, this is a product available that is out there.
Yeah, it's out there for insurance. So right now, I mean, our business model has focused mainly on insurance customers.
Mm.
That's just due to that we're able to get significant scale with them.
Hmm. Yep.
And certainly, I mean, I think certainly we wanted to say which parties had the most vested interest, right, to have healthier policyholders, and patients or customers can ultimately benefit as well, right?
So that's a big. So insurance is obviously a huge segment for you. So what do you have? Let's look at Prenetics 2017. What are your goals for this year for your company? And what sort of the next question after that is what sort of trends and opportunities do you see in the coming years for your company?
So in 2017, we're more and more moving and transforming ourselves from a purely genetic testing company to a digital health company.
Hmm.
So what that encompasses is that we have new tests on the market. So we launched MyDNA basically late last year. That is a genetic test to understand how nutrients, vitamins, and diets are affected by your DNA.
Mm.
And this also plays a role into your exercise, right? So certainly not one diet doesn't fit for everyone.
That's right. Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
can actually figure that out with your genetics. And along with that information, we've created digital apps. And of course, that's my background in e-commerce and such to help you continually engage yourself.
Mm, that's great. Yeah.
For example, it gives you an on-demand dietitian. So if you have any questions about DNA report or if you want to have trouble losing weight, within your mobile phone, you have a dietitian on demand.
Wow, that could be very, very cool and very highly sought after, especially when it's for you because it's by DNA.
Yes,
So.
it's very personalized, right?
Hmm.
To be able
Hmm.
to see how you absorb carbohydrates, right? For example, I'm highly sensitive to carbohydrates,
Hmm.
right? So I mean, everyone knows that consuming too much is not a good thing, but it's your own data. And by me limiting carbohydrates, a very simple thing I did, I still ate it. I lost like 12 pounds, within a good 8 weeks period of time.
Wow, nice.
Just because you're sensitive to it, so you're much more prone to it than a normal individual.
Yeah, this sort of data is very powerful because it can literally change your life, right? If you
Yeah,
use it, apply it properly.
and then you can then use the data and to achieve an optimal diet based upon your genetics.
Right, right.
And for 2017, our goals are to basically have overseas expansion throughout Southeast Asia.
Mm.
So we're looking into basically growing our team size from about 55 people. We expect to be over 100 people by year's end, and have a presence in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia.
Wow, very nice. And which are all big. I mean, that's basically you're hitting all the big insurance, all the insurance companies. Those are their big markets as well, right? So
Correct.
it falls in line. Okay, and then let's say 2 to 5 years time. What plans you have for the company? If are you actively searching for an exit? Are you looking bigger? Are you looking IPO? Will you be Hong Kong's first unicorn? The $1 billion question.
Yeah, so I mean, right now we're definitely not looking for an exit. I mean, it's way too early. I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing right now. It's just seeing the potential because I think what's very different between this company and my previous companies, I see a much needed gap in terms of what's available today and what should be available, right? And that's in really the way how we treat healthcare.
Yep.
I think so. We have a lot of opportunity for that, and so we are well positioned to do that. I would also feel that where we are today, given our traction, our momentum, and our current partnerships, our current infrastructure that we set up, we're well positioned to be a dominant leader in that position in the space of genetic testing and digital health across Southeast Asia. So right now we're just fully focused on growing the team all throughout. Also, certainly we have a full pipeline of new products that we want to launch out later this year. And always looking ahead 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So we're properly well positioned for that and continue to innovate on our current products.
That's great. Good answer. One last question for you, Danny, and I do appreciate your time. So you're obviously a serial entrepreneur, very successful. You had a number of companies that have done very well in very different markets. If you were to give one piece of advice to a young aspiring entrepreneur that has perhaps followed you and seen how you went into these companies and these markets that you knew nothing about, but somehow you went in with such zeal and such determination that you were able to create successful companies and either exit them or sell them. What's one piece of advice that you would give to some of our younger entrepreneurial audiences that aspire to be like you?
I would say always focus in on the customer, right? Think from the customer perspective. What is it that you can bring to the table to your customer that you can add value? Right? Because I think a lot of times is if you're able to understand the customer's mindset and you pretend you're the customer, hey, how can I actually get that sale? What is it that that you could gain from the value proposition? So it has to understand what other companies are out in the market and how you differentiate. So what's your unique selling proposition? Why are you better? Why should your potential customer choose you versus not the other companies?
Yeah.
So I think if new entrepreneurs is really understand the unique selling proposition and not look at it from themselves, step into the customer's shoes. That's something I always tell my team is that every single time we talk to a customer, that's an opportunity for us to shine, for us to deliver more than we promised and continue to always deliver that so they'll see, wow, these guys are awesome.
Wise words. Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much for your time today. I had a really good time catching up with you. Where can people find you, connect with you on social media or website if there's anywhere they want to find a little bit more about what you do at Prenetics?
Yeah, sure. Definitely can connect me with LinkedIn.
Okay.
Danny Yeung, Hong Kong.
All right, and your company website's Prenetics.com, right?
Right, Prenetics.com.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you again, Danny, for your time. And Danny, you are speaking on Friday during the health tech vertical. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so guys and gals, go over to you can go online and you can look up on the Start Me Up Hong Kong 2017 festival website. You can get your tickets there for the health tech vertical, which is this coming Friday, January 20th, and Danny will be one of the keynote speakers. Thanks again for your time, Danny. Much appreciated, and we're gonna have a really good time this week. So, take care.
Thank you, Jay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. All the show notes and links can be found over at jkimshow.com. Come back often and make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Don't forget to join us next week for another exciting episode of The Jay Kim Show. I'd love to hear your comments. You can find me on Twitter at JayKimmer, JayKimmer. See you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Hack Your Fitness, the high achiever's guide to getting ripped in under 3 hours a week. If you're anything like me, you're probably working a full-time job or jobs and trying to find time to balance family life, social life, and last but not least, fitness. Look, I get it. I'm a full-time investor and entrepreneur myself, and father of two. So how am I able to stay fit year-round without spending hours and hours in the gym killing myself on the cardio machine? After struggling for the last 15 years trying every workout and diet under the sun, I finally designed a system that allows me to achieve and maintain single-digit body fat for life in under 3 hours a week. Cardio not required. Head on over to hackyour.fitness and download my free 13-page guide that teaches you the simple science behind efficient fitness and smart nutrition and gives you everything you need to know to finally take control of your life. That's hackyour.fitness.